Introducing the reigning, defending, inside fighting host, Robby "Sid" Clark.
Truthfully, I would have waited all day for this one. I've been excited about just getting a chance to speak with you, man. I've been a hardcore fan of the sport since like '99. We'll jump into it. This I wanted to do a little different. I got some of the questions emailed to me. To be honest, didn't like some of them, and I thought we would just go back and forth a bit because you're doing some really cool stuff. Like I saw you were on a podcast with Michael Saylor. Was it last week or the week before?
Michael Saylor is very, very brilliant.
Yeah, he's something else, right? Like some of the people, and that's also why I want to get into fighting and stuff like that. But I think it's cool. Like you're obviously such a smart guy that now that you don't have a fight lined up, so there's less to talk about in regards to that. But you have a different platform where different fighters and things are watching you, so it's cool to kind of get into whether it be cryptocurrencies or even like your wrestling academy, because that's one of the things you find missing, and I see like it's getting better in the NBA. It's always been pretty good in hockey though, but is the lack of financial education in athletics. And you were somebody who obviously you were a champion in ONE FC and Bellator, but like I saw you got this a lot. People like when you were signed to fight Jake Paul, they're like, oh, are you doing it for money? And you're like, well, yeah, kind of, but people don't know this, but you were actually pretty much retired before coming into the UFC. A lot of people kind of forget that you were at least set up or financially able to do that. So can you like when you initially were signed to get into the UFC, that was pretty much it, right? You were basically like, hey, if I'm not going to UFC, I don't need to fight again. I'm kind of just going to do my thing.
I was retired for 16 months before my first UFC fight. So since I did my stint with Bellator, I was 9-0 champion for 3+ years. That was what 2000. I won the belt in 2010 and retained the belt through 2013. Then obviously the publicly failed negotiation. Dana just didn't want to sign me. I still haven't asked him why. When I was in his good graces before the Jake Paul fight, I probably should have asked him why. Come on, tell me why finally, because I never really, I had some guesses, but never really knew the reason. I felt like every fighter, really every athlete, but every fighter especially sticks around too long. And I was financially set, doing what I wanted to do. I was 18-0. I felt like, hey, I held between the one championship belt and the Bellator belt, I held for 6 years plus between the two of them. And so it's like, hey, I've done everything I can do. I still had, I think, 2 or 3 fights out left on my one championship contract. And so it was just like, hey, I'm done. I appreciate, everything he has done for me. I actually almost took a job with one championship because I really like those guys. And yeah, so in November of 2017, I retired. And I genuinely thought I was done. And I left out. If I get the fight to prove I'm the best in the world, I'll come back. And, it's like, I don't know how that's going to happen. Maybe one championship has a big signing. Like, they've had a few since then. Maybe they do a co-promote with, it was probably that Bellator is probably more likely for that because UFC doesn't really do co-promotes and they never have. And so I was retired for around 10 months. And then in September of 2018, I got a call from Chatri, who's the CEO of ONE Championship. And he said, hey, would you be open to being traded? And I said, yeah. Well, I didn't know that could happen, but sure, let's do it, And so he kind of laid it out that Demetrius Johnson wasn't happy in UFC. He wanted to leave, and they were offering me up in exchange. And I thought, well, this is great. Demetrius gets what he wants. I get what I want, which is my opportunity to fight these best guys who I haven't. And I got it. And so it was like, I had to take it, right? It wasn't that deal time. I wish that time would have been 2013 when I finished with Bellator and I was really kind of on a really hot streak there. But when you get your opportunities in life, you take them. And that was what I did. So I came out of retirement, and then obviously my UFC stint was not great, right? I 1-2. Before that, I was 18-0. And then I needed the hip surgery. So then I said I was done again for the second time. That was October of 2019. And then I had my hip surgery in September of 2020. And then, with the Jake Paul fight, it was like, I don't know why people didn't believe me. Cause I feel like I have a history of telling the truth. And I said, I'm taking this fight for 2 reasons. Cause they're paying me a whole bunch of money and cause I think it's gonna be fun. And that's it. I have no need to prove I'm a good fighter. I was wrestling, national champion, Olympian, multiple promotion world champion in mixed martial arts. I have no need to prove that. I'm going to do it because I'm going to make a bunch of money and I think it's going to be fun. And that was it. And obviously, would I have liked to have a better outcome? Yeah, of course. I mean, there's some days when I'm driving, I'm like, I really couldn't kick Jake Paul's ass. Like, what the hell? What in the world? That's effing stupid. And it's like, and then I go on with my day, and it's like I told people that was how I felt about it. And for some reason, they got more into it than I did. And they didn't believe me. It was really bizarre.
Yeah, but you know what, man? You had an interview afterwards, and you said something, and I almost got goosebumps thinking about that because I actually used it since then. It was one line you said where you're like, you know what? I thought of the pros and cons. Like you said, I'm making a bunch of money. And then my one why for not doing it was I would get embarrassed, right? And that wasn't a good enough why not to do something. And like you just said about jumping on opportunities, and I was like, that line was so good because like, I've applied that to the same thing. You really have no excuses a lot of times because a lot of times people don't try different things is because literally just they're going to be embarrassed. And of course, in your situation, you're talking about a fight where you're like, okay, you go masculinity, all these things, and then new crowd. Okay, that could be the one thing that you're embarrassed about, but you can apply that to almost anything in life. And that holds so many people back from opportunities. But you could have said that about every wrestling match. If you did that, you never would have been in the Olympics. You never would have gotten a fight. You never would have had the platform you do now. And there's without a doubt, I was going to ask you about that too. I'm sure you have more opportunities opening up to you even now. Not that you needed them. You were successful before, but there's got to be more that's opened up since that fight as well too.
Yeah. I mean, the funny thing is that I don't really want to take them, right? I love coaching at my academy. That's what I enjoy doing. And so, there are some other opportunities, but it's like, I'm not all that interested in them. I enjoy my life the way it is. Yeah. And so, I'll say I've dealt with kids for the last 10 years that I coached at the academy, and very few people are willing to say, well, I could get embarrassed. And that's why, all the time I have kids saying, oh, I don't want to do this tournament. I don't want to do that tournament. And you say, well, why not? And there's always like, and I know this, there's always like 5 bullshit reasons first. It's like, well, the weight class isn't good, or, well, I don't want to do this. And it's like, and so now it's the point where I've been doing this for a decade. And it's like, okay, listen, I've done this conversation with 100 kids. Please just don't waste my time with the bullshit. And let's get down to the nitty gritty. I'm busy. I don't have time for you to tell me 7 excuses aren't right. And most of the time it's some form of competition anxiety, which, when you think about competition anxiety, it's like, well, what's going to happen if I lose? People are going to laugh at me. People are going to say I suck. And so, I guess it's not directly embarrassed, but it's kind of definitely in the same ballpark. And so, yeah, I mean, I see that all the time with kids. And yeah, I mean, that was like the one thing, people kept saying, well, what if I do? And what, like that's not a good enough why. And so I might as well just do it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and that's also the fight game too. Like you said, you lost 2 fights in mixed martial arts. I mean, look how many people, like Connor's coming back, and he just, he got, it was obviously always an exciting fight, but Dustin Poirier put him on him in the second round there, right? And he's got to come back from that. This is a fight game. It's different. Listen, business is no different in wrestling. You have ups and downs and everything. It's just a more of a social platform. You got Logan going in right now with Floyd, which, by the way, I wanted to ask you. You guys seem to hit it off very well. What do you think about the fight coming up now with Logan and Floyd? Obviously, he's taking it seriously. You got a 200-pound Logan and
I don't like it. I actually don't like it at all. And I said this when I was on his podcast, and I just said it right to his face because it was how I felt about it. Man, I think about my sport, wrestling. If you put a 200-pound guy who's never done it before, I don't care. They could be elite athlete. I don't give a damn. And you give me the best 145, 150 pounder in the world. The guy who's never done it is not going to score a point. I don't care if you give him 2 days. He's not going to score a point. It's not going to be even slightly competitive. And that's kind of how I feel about this is like, if it is slightly competitive, Floyd is making it that way or letting that happen because, yeah, I mean, I just compare my sport of wrestling, and I've watched, people who haven't done it play around with high school kids, not kids that are the best in the world, but like kids who are like just okay at it and they get killed. So imagining someone who's never done it beating someone that's the best in the world and arguably one of the best ever done it it's kind of nonsense.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, to Logan's credit and even Jake's credit, they seemingly, unlike, because I know there's TikTok fights and things coming up, but like they seem to have, at least for a period of time, really taken it seriously or are trying to put in that work. Like they're doing a real training camp. And so, yeah, but same thing. You're fighting the best guy in the world. And listen, like I trained mixed martial arts for years. I trained at 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu when I was a teenager, but Joe Rogan was still, snapping my head off. And I took it seriously too. So there are levels to this where it's like, you know what I mean? Some guys are just, they're better. They've been training a lot longer, and there's really something to that in whether it's jiu-jitsu, whether it's wrestling, and even boxing. Boxing just has that X factor of that, you got a 200, 215-pound guy who's hitting a 145-pound guy. So if he somehow manages just one hit, that's the only thing I can see there is something sliding through.
And the thing about that is I would give that more credence if Floyd was, kind of a brawler who got hit a lot. But when you think about Floyd, it's like, and I said this on the Impulsive podcast, like how many people have knocked Floyd down? Like think about how the cumulative amount of rounds he's fought against world-class people and how many times has he got clocked? And the answer is very, very, very few. So yeah, I guess we'll see what happens. Who knows? I could be wrong, but I doubt it.
You gonna buy the pay-per-view?
Probably not. I don't know what I'll be doing that day. I mean, there's a chance, but it's not like it's marked on my calendar or anything.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think it's June 6th, but it'll be interesting to see.
So let's see. Oh, that's a bit. So, man, I had something going on that weekend. I would have liked to go to the Bitcoin conferences in Miami. Wait, actually, that probably means the Bitcoiners are going to go to the Logan Paul and Floyd Mayweather fight. That's funny.
Yeah, well, actually, I'm going to be in Miami that week as well too. So I'm trying. I'm
Bitcoiner.
Am I a Bitcoiner? Definitely, man. Since 2007, 17. But we'll get into that for sure. I'm not going to the Bitcoining mining conference. I'm actually going out there. We're doing a separate skit out there with a couple entertainers. But I did definitely like. I love UFC. Like my wife and I, we go 2-3 times a year. It's funny. She loves the sport too, but she's like physically passed out sometimes in the front row, and it's been like not from drinking, just from being tired. We're young and old at the same time. But no, man, I'm a huge fight fan. I have so much respect for the sport. Not quite as much boxing, but that's a fight. Like I feel like everybody's involved. It's a weird dynamic. I don't know about the TikTok fights. That's a little bit different, just because I don't see them taking it seriously. But it is Floyd Mayweather. And Logan and them, like I said, I think he's, I think Floyd's going to win, right? But I can see at least they've taken it seriously and they're trying to put a promotion together. And now speaking that, and then we go on that topic, promotion, I'm sure that one's going to be a little different. What were your thoughts on the commentary for Triller and how that was kind of thrown on the back end?
As a production?
It was strange. I feel like a lot of decisions they made were very strange. I like the one guy, the ghost guy. I didn't know who that was. I wasn't a huge fan.
Yeah, and you've done a bunch of different products like Bellator, ONE FC, UFC. Were they all good, or they're all kind of different, or you're like UFC seems to be the most polished, obviously from the outside? What were your thoughts on working in so many different organizations in different countries?
No, I got along with everyone. A lot of people didn't like Bjorn Rebney when I was with Bellator, and I think he was fine. Like I got along with him. I mean, not that we never butted heads like athletes and promoters do sometimes, but I got along with him fine. Obviously, I thought highly of the One Championship guys, and then UFC. Obviously, I butted heads with Dana, but they treated me fine. Right, it was fair while I was there. It was fair. It was equitable. It was good. So no, I mean, I guess when I started in Bellator, they were pretty small time. That was my first fight in Bellator. Was Bellator 13 or 14, something, a really, really long time ago. So they were getting their feet underneath them. But no, I thought everyone was great.
Yeah, and it's funny. I think a lot of the Dana stuff too, and I've been a hardcore Dana supporter, like I said, just because what they did with it. I was trying to, I'm coming from Canada, and it's 2002. Nobody knows the sport. I'm there like a 15-year-old kid trying to tell my friends back at home watching VHS Frank Shamrock fights, and what they've been able to do with it's incredible. But I think a lot of the critique or whatnot just more had to do with, like, at the time there was Georges St. Pierre was a big star. You were in a different organization, and you got to have that kind of like, he's not going to beat our guy. Come on, right? And because look, like you said, the trade was interesting. Everybody was going nuts on Sherdog when that happened because they're like, oh my God, we got Ben finally coming over, and debates back and forth. But I mean, to make that, obviously Demetrius in the 125-pound division didn't do what they wanted it to do, which was, a little bit like I understood, I guess, why I never picked up. For some reason, Demetrius just wasn't doing it with the fans out there. But obviously you're great on the mic. But the weird part is you never know who's going to make it. Demetrius is a great speaker too. You're obviously an incredible speaker as well. You do have that comedy side to you too, though, where you make things funny as well too. And I think that might be a dynamic that just catches people more, because you definitely had a lot of buzz coming in. You still have a lot of buzz. You have a lot of buzz during, before, and after. So
there was something about Demetrius that just it just never caught on. And I always say it's hard. You can never pick out who's going to be a superstar. It just I don't know why. Because I like Demetrius. I don't think I missed any of his fights. I watched them all. He was really awesome. But yeah, for some reason he just never caught on for a pay-per-view standpoint. And again, no idea why, but he didn't, and that's just how it was. And obviously, for whatever reason, I did. And sometimes you can't really explain that. It's you can try to explain it like afterwards, after the fact, but going into it, I would not have even guessed that I became as big as I did, as fast as I did. That was kind of shocking to me.
Yeah, was it exciting too, or kind of like
I think it's one of those things that you take with a grain of salt. You don't want, and this, you don't want to let what other people think of you shape what you think of yourself that much. And so for me, I mean, the funniest thing for me was like, I feel like I've been the same person for the last, so this is in 2019 when I get really popular. I'm thinking, well, I've been the same guy for the last 10 years. What changed? What changed? And the answer is, I don't think anything changed, but for some reason something clicked and it went boom, and that was weird. Yeah, I have no idea why.
Yeah, well, I mean, as a fan of the sport, I know why, right? Because like obviously you were very successful, but like you said, it's not always different fighting styles and everything is part of the personality, and you have that comedy flair to you, which I think is what I think Dana got a lot of flack for maybe not thinking he liked you, but I think it was more circumstantial that you're the GOAT in another organization, you're dominating guys over there, and that you got to stand up for the promotion that you believe in, right? So let's talk about coming into the UFC. I know now, first of all, how's your wrestling right now with your hip? I know you made a good comment the other day, like I hate it as well too. Sometimes when older guys are coming in, they're 38, 39 years old, and like, I'm in the best shape of my life. And it's like, you've been an athlete since you were 12 years old. How does that make any, like, what were you doing in your 20s, right? But after the hip surgery, people don't know, you were super limited coming into the UFC. Are you legitimately more mobile now in wrestling than you were the couple years that you were in the UFC there?
Oh yeah, it's not even close. Like I couldn't on my left side, which that was the hip. I couldn't really tie my shoe. I couldn't get the range of motion to get down there to tie my shoe. I would have to straighten out my leg, and then I could just barely, because my hamstrings was flexible, I could get down there usually. But if I wanted to do a regular, how you put your shoe on in a chair and then you lean down, like I couldn't have done that. So no, I've actually been wrestling. I got some college guys home who trained at AWA and wrestling, and yeah, it feels really good, and it's nice to be able to get back on the mat and not like have those limitations that I had, and just wrestle and not worry too much about it. I mean, it's for me, I love to wrestle, and I probably didn't wrestle for between the post surgery and the just how much pain and limitations I was having before the surgery. I probably didn't wrestle or do anything on the mat for about 18 months, maybe just kind of show moves, and that was it. And that kind of sucked. So man, really feel good and happy to be back on the mat and going.
Yeah. Now I know you say you're fully retired now, but is there anything then with that, because you do feel good there, if there was some kind of a matchup in mixed martial arts, maybe I imagine wrestling you might do, but is there anything that would entice you to potentially come back for a scrap, like in a fantasy land, if UFC is like, hey, we're going to do such and such, would you be motivated to do that because you feel better, or you're like, no, I'm not really interested anymore?
Yeah, I'm not really interested. It's funny because part of me loves competing, and I thoroughly enjoy it. And there was definitely parts of training for the Jake Paul thing that I enjoyed. And then just the promotion was kind of, they were just all over the place, which that was very stressful for me. And I did not like that at all. So there's part of me that says like, yeah, it would be fun to do it again. But then there's part of me that also knows that, hey, I'm not what I used to be. And I probably shouldn't do it anymore. And, the other thing is now, because of my popularity level, it's like, I can't just go take a wrestling match just for fun, because everyone's going to try to watch it and they're going to make a big deal of it, even though it's just like, hey, I'm just an old guy who likes wrestling, who wants to go do a match. But if I go do it, everyone's going to make a big deal of it, which, again, kind of like that maybe shouldn't be something that prevents me from doing it. So, yeah, who knows? Yeah, I guess the other thing is like when I was training for my last fight, it's like just that feeling of, you got to do it. I got to get up. I got to run today, or I got to go lift weights, or I got to go box or whatever, versus now, in retired life, it's like, oh, hey, I feel like wrestling. I'll wrestle today. Oh man, I'm kind of sore. I'm just going to go a little bit today and then I'm gonna be done. And there's not really any obligation to perform well or to do it. Like, that's really nice, because if you think about my life, I started training very seriously at the age of 14. So I was at wrestling, play other sports before that, but at 14 was like, I'm gonna freaking do this thing. Like I want to be really, really, really good at it. And I kind of committed my life to it, to the point where I was barely taking any days off. Like I definitely wasn't taking weeks off ever. And then I competed semi full time, like I said, until 2017 was my first retirement. When I've been 33. So I went full time at it for 19 years. Like I didn't take time off in 19 years. And if you kind of look at the competitive landscape of that, obviously 14 to 24 was when I wrestled in the Olympics. So that 10 years, there's no break in. I didn't have sustaining injuries. There's no break in competition of any sort. So I competed in the Olympics in August of 2008. And then I took my first fight in February of 2009. You know what I'm saying? So like that, I mean, that gap, that's only 6 months. And it's like, well, yeah, I got to learn how to fight. So obviously I was in the gym all the time. I think I actually took a week off after the Olympics, went on a vacation, and went right into fighting, fought in February, fought in April, fought in August. Then I got signed with Bellator. So I didn't fight again till April of the following year, but then it was April, May, June, October. So it's like over the course of 19 years, I took barely any time off. And so, yeah, at age 36 to like go in the gym and help the college guys and then be like, I don't really want to go hard today. Well, you guys go hard. I'll hang out. I'll watch. I'll help out. Maybe I'll hop in once or twice. Like that's like a really nice feeling.
Yeah, no, yeah, for sure. Now, and I kind of wanted to get into that a bit because, like I said, yours was different. One of the things that I find sad, because I don't know, like I actually grew up as a child actor and I did really well, but I wound up going bankrupt at 21 because I knew nothing about money.
Really?
Yeah, so I had to start over from scratch. I was serving tables, I was bartending, and then I started getting financially educated. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad at 24 years old. And then I started learning how to, it's a great book. That's the one I recommend for everybody on getting started. But I think it's cool in your setup because you were in your early 30s by the time when you're like, you know what, I don't need to fight. And if you didn't mind, I kind of wanted to get into talking about, what you did to set yourself up. Because you obviously, you did pretty well. You had decent contracts, as much as you could find in it. But you had to set yourself up outside of that. You can't just like, well, maybe if you owned Apple stock 15 years ago, but you can't just, sit it. Like, what did you do to set yourself up where you're like, hey, I don't need to fight at this point. So for fighters coming in who are like, they fight 10 years, they might make 6 figures a year for a certain period of time, but then they don't know what to do afterwards or what to do. How did you set yourself up for that?
Yeah, you know what the sad thing is, though? I made as much in the Jake Paul fight as I did my whole Bellator career. How crazy is that? That's like, oh, damn. And I was never unhappy. I thought I was, I was building up and I was making more and more money. I was happy with it. But that was 9 fights in, I think, 3.5 to 4 years, somewhere in there.
Even more credit to what you did.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah. So, so I would say I grew up in a blue collar household. So, just kind of work hard, save your money type of thing. So I was very insanely frugal through college. So I would work camps all summer. And then I would cut my parents a check so they could pay off the house that I was living in. And then I said, whenever I want this back, this is like a loan. You guys will pay me back. And so then when I was right out of college, I bought my first house. Actually, I think I was 23 years old. Bought my first house, which actually that was a shit investment. I lost money on that. Whatever. I guess maybe because I paid out the principal instead of renting, maybe I came out on the positive. But I bought right before 2008, unfortunately. But then the other thing I started early, I started Northwestern Mutual account, full life insurance, where that accrues value. So I have a lot of value in that also. And then obviously I started becoming more financially educated myself and realizing, there's these other things to invest in. So for example, we have 5 wrestling academies, 2 of the commercial buildings we own. So we pay ourselves the rent as opposed to going to someone else. So we're building value there. So it's just kind of things like that have happened. And I think sounds like what you did yourself is as I try to educate myself as best as possible. And then in 2017, which was positive and then negative and now very positive, I got into crypto and someone, I'd read a lot on, I don't want to say I wasn't a gold bug, but I was like sound money principles. I don't know if I read a lot of Ron Paul and that type of stuff. So I was all about the Fed's just going to keep printing money and printing money. And we saw that happen, during the first financial crisis. I think it's printed money 4 different times now, many trillions of dollars. And so I got into crypto and it clicked for me right away. And so I rode the wave up in 2017. I believed in the principles of it, so I didn't sell any. So then I rode the wave back down. I stuck around through the bear market of 2018, 2019, and then 2020. Obviously, we started going up. But one of the things that really helped me was I had money where when we had that crash on March 13th, and I mean, literally any market you want to went like this, right straight down on March 13th. And so on March 14th, I'm like, ooh, Bitcoin's low, Ethereum's low, Litecoin. So I bought Ethereum at $170 and it's like 3,000 now, And so I had some cash reserves. So when the crash hit, I was able to take advantage of those prices.
Yeah, no, and that's incredible. Look, you touched on a few good things there. Obviously, there's, life insurance, depending what it is at a young age. Not the term, I guess you got the cash building policies are good to start if you can go, hey, and just be disciplined, because money's going to go. Whether you were frugal and you said that, but some people are going to spend it in Vegas, some people are going to spend it on investments and setting up early. But what else you said there is like diversification, right? Because you also said one of the big things I talk about people when owning gyms or anything. The people who got slaughtered, unfortunately, not rightfully so, they haven't been taken care of, but are the restaurant owners of different people who actually didn't own their property either. That was a huge problem during the pandemic where the people leasing really, really got hurt because that's kind of your hedge. And the middle class wealth generator has been real estate historically because it's risen at the rate of inflation over the past 100, 150 years. And the reality is, most people are leveraged on their real estate too, which gives you the advantage. If it rose 3.5%, you're raising, you're actually getting 5 times that return. And the problem, I won't get into the refinancing and you taking that out tax free, but like you having the wrestling academies too is what also provides you cash flow, because now in this low interest rate environment, you can have 7 figures in a bank account, but or in Apple stock, right? And you're not going to get enough of a dividend to pay yourself. So you've got to be a little diversified in that regard. And then to touch on crypto, like the way I look at crypto, so there's value and then there's money. Your real estate is value. Your wrestling academies are value. Your businesses are creating value. And then there's money. If I'm a currency trader, like to break it down simply for people, it's like, well, they trade currency all day long because they think the American dollar is going to be strong now, the Canadian dollar or the yen. And really over time, like I'm in the same philosophy as you, is that, well, if you look at equality, I don't think there's anything for second or third world nations that have experienced inflation from 10 to 100% plus, over the past decade and longer throughout history. There's no better, thing for equality in the world than cryptocurrencies. Which ones will be the winners, we don't necessarily know. I think you're right with the network effect to bet on the big boys, obviously, right? I've seen before you've wearing like Litecoin shirts and things like that. But I think that's something, also for people to remember, because obviously this last week we had a big correction. And again, the people who go all in on crypto, that's going to hurt you again because you're not diversified. You got to always remember that you got to try to create value in other areas. So I say there's value, and then crypto would be money. But understand that, it's very volatile right now.
Yeah, one interesting thing that I've heard a lot of times, but I actually just listened to another podcast I was talking about last night is and I think you just said it there, the biggest thing which is creating with wealth inequality is the Fed just continue to print money. And most people don't realize that. And most people think it actually, it balances out because they give to essentially take from the rich, give to the poor. Most rich people have learned how to avoid most taxes. And then the other thing is when they print more money, asset prices go up. And who has the asset prices? And it's the wealthy people. So the wealthy people both learn to avoid taxes for the most part. Lots of times the real estate has some tremendous tax loopholes. And then obviously then also they own the assets. The asset prices go up. So they kind of win twice. And the middle class and the poor are kind of left holding the bag.
100%. And to take it even further, second and third world nations, they borrow against first world currencies. So when they try to do the same thing, they experience hyperinflation. And in developed nations, we print our own. And like you said, we hide it through asset inflation and subsidizing goods. So we'll subsidize the farming industry. So, our inflation doesn't appear as high on CPI because we'll go, you're not paying that much more for corn. Maybe not this past year, but, and we'll subsidize those goods, which again is large institutions. And then the asset prices get appreciation, just like you said, because the majority of the people holding the assets are wealthy people. So we hide it, but it's not hidden to second and third world nations. And that's something I think, since we're so connected, that needs to change or will change in the future. And now the key to keeping everything civil, though, is going to be how governments are able to do that without any turmoil. Because the fall of every dynasty, government, kingdom, whatever it might be, is always when you're not improving the quality of life for your citizens, whether it's Roman time, Egyptians, whatever. Once that starts to go down is when you start having, people freak out, right? So that's going to be the balancing act that hopefully they're able to pull off. But it's like you can see how they've improved. 2008, I mean, it was better than the Depression, although it wasn't great. And you can look at it both ways. Hindsight's always 20/20 in this pandemic now. But I always try to focus on the macro because when you go to the micro, it's too difficult to understand, right? And if you're trying to look top down, it's a little bit easier to go, does this work? Does it not? Like my philosophy for investing in Canada is simply supply and demand. We're the second largest landmass, 39th in population, got very low vacancy, and we have double the immigrants coming in a year than we're putting on new supply in houses. So it's very easy for me to go, okay, if I buy under the cost of build, is the demand there? Yeah, the demand is there. Okay, well, buy everything, right? Like buy whatever you can, because that's going to be there while watching. Like we buy under the price of build. I'm not buying in Toronto in these major metropolitan cities because we're cash flow investors, right? But I think like you like I said, you're unique in your approach because like I said, most fighters. And you see, guys, now I heard something the other day about Tito, who's made a ton of money in his career, and he seems to be, you hope not. He even had a divorce that seemed to work out in his favor.
And it's a little, right?
Yeah, I mean, so like I said, I grew up reading about athletes, and fighters are almost the worst, but it happens in all sports. And I think it's some stat like 67% of all, I think it's NBA and NFL players are bankrupt within 5 years of their exit of the league. And one of the things is that these people, whether it's fighters or football players, basketball, they don't realize is that careers are short and you're not going to have the same income level once you exit. So you can't get used to spending $1 million a year when you're going to only make 100,000 a year after you're done, or 150 or whatever. Right. And so you get used to spending $1 million a year. And then some of them don't even get me started because some forget they even pay taxes. Mike Perry comes to mind that I don't think he realized that, because in fighting, we're not employees. So they give us, if you make $60,000, they give you a $60,000 check. And then some guys are like, oh, I got $60,000. I'll go buy a $60,000 car, not realizing the taxes aren't taken out, So it's kind of funny in fighting. It's worse, but yeah, a lot of athletes don't realize that their income generation period is really small. And that once it's over, it's going to drop very steeply.
Well, it's funny. I remember when you said that, I thought of Nick Diaz when he came on for one of his fights and was like, I didn't know I got to pay taxes, or I forget, I'm misquoting him there, but it was so funny. Right? Yeah, and I think these guys, I think Nick and Nate are actually low-key geniuses themselves, right? Like Nate knows what he's doing. You can tell, seeing some interviews, that he's he's a smart guy and a very entertaining, right? Calculated in what they do, right? So, and Nick, it'll be interesting. What do you think about that? Nick coming back now. He obviously appears to be in great shape, but he's probably 36, 37 now. How do you feel about him making a comeback?
Yeah, Nate's fighting in. We said Nate or Nick?
Well, Nate's definitely coming. I mean, he's got a hell of a fight, but Nick, yeah, is looking to come back too, right? So,
yeah, it's funny. They have definitely built a cult following because, Nate hasn't been. He obviously had the Connor fights, but if you look at his record in the last 5 years, he's lost. So he fought March of 2016, which that's over 5 years ago. We're in May now. So in the last 5 years, he's fought Conor McGregor, Anthony Pettis, and George Masvidal, being 1 and 2 in the last 5 years, and yet he's getting a top 3 fight in Leon Edwards. I don't believe he's won a fight in a decade. I'm gonna look this up to make sure I'm not wrong. I don't think I am. So he had a no contest, a loss, and a loss. His last win was just under a decade. October 29, 2011 was when he beat BJ Penn. And man, so for people to still be excited, they've built quite the cult following because he hasn't won a fight in almost a decade, and people are still very excited to see him come back. So yeah, I mean that's great that they've done that. I would have a very hard time seeing him being very competitive with anyone on the top rung. I don't care. I would say if I were the promoter, I would put him in there with someone who wasn't that good. Give me an entertaining fight. People love Nick Diaz. Whatever. Let's have a great time.
Yeah, no, I agree. Listen, same thing. I love the Diaz brothers because they're so entertaining. But I'm a fan of the sport, right? So it's amazing to see what they've done on that level as well too. Because you look at things, but we ignore that when we really like the fighters, right? So we did it with BJ Penn for a long time too, and that's a different. That
was sad because BJ was 0. I'll look it up so I'm not wrong. I think he was 0-8 in his last 8. It was ridiculous. Let's see. So he had lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He lost 7 in a row. And he hit a draw before that. So he did not win once in his last 8 fights. Very unfortunate.
Now, not that I'm drawing comparisons, but I wanted to do it there because I think and I'll explain why. But Tyron Woodley, who's obviously gotten some few losses now. Here's the difference there is that Tyron's fought literally the best in the world. And the 170 right now division, is just insane between Kobe, between all these guys. And obviously he's had some unfortunate outcomes in there. But what do you think? But athletically and everything, he doesn't. It's very different than Nick and Nate where they took a ton of time off. Maybe he was distracted and he's pointed that out. But what do you think is next for your buddy Woodley?
Well, I'm hoping he gets to fight against Jake Paul because I couldn't whoop his ass. So hopefully Tyron does. And he'll make a lot of money, which I would love. Yeah, I mean, so Tyron, obviously his first 3 fights were against the champion, the number 1 and the number 2. So again, not like a huge drop. Obviously his last one, I think Luque's 6th or 7th, somewhere in there. He had some good moments in there and eventually got rocked and finished, which is unfortunate. Yeah, but everyone ages. Everyone gets older. Father, they had a saying that's 100% true, but father times are defeating this everyone. And that's true. There's no one who's won forever. It's impossible.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I know when we got I know there was some rumbling of George and Oscar. Any thoughts on that or just no interest?
That's disappointing that Dana shut it down. Obviously, Dana let me do it, which thank you. I appreciate that, Dana. But for George, he hasn't fought in forever. He's retired. I guess maybe just because he hates Oscar, and that's why Dana would let him do it, or I don't really know why.
Yeah, he definitely is not a fan of Oscar at all. I don't know if that's the fight I'd want to see either for George. He's put it all together very well, but boxing wasn't. I think straight wrestling. He's even said that in just a straight wrestling fight. I think he's commented that you would beat him, but it's mixed martial arts where he puts it all together the best, obviously, and I think that's. But
if he was gonna make a big paycheck and there's something he wanted to do, then he should be able to do it. It sucks that he can't.
Yeah, fair, especially because they didn't make that. A year or two ago, Khabib and him would have been the one maybe at a catch weight. I know George was saying he was going to come down in weight, but that would have been exciting. I don't know about what your thoughts on that, but that would have been an exciting fight to see.
Yeah, I'm in for it. Unfortunately, it never happened, and I think it's probably very unlikely.
Hey, would you wrestle Khabib? Like exhibition or anything? How do you think you would do? Yeah.
I would like to see Khabib against a good wrestler because, obviously his octagon wrestling was tremendous. One of the best ever. And they say he was Sambo, but obviously his father was a wrestler, so I'm sure he kind of grew up around it and did a lot of it. And the region where he's from is best ever. But we never saw him doing straight wrestling, so yeah, that would have been fun. Yeah.
No, I was always intrigued by the bear videos he was doing where it showed, like, I don't know if you ever saw him wrestling as a kid with bears. And the bears actually had really good technique. I don't know if anybody, you see the bears like, that amazed me more than anything. Like I was shocked by, I guess the animal, I don't know, their instincts on there, but they seem to have really good technique in the wrestling realm. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That was funny.
Well, listen, man, we're coming up here now, but I just wanted to, two last things I wanted to check on. I was going to ask what your top 3 cryptocurrencies are, and then also what else, you got going on this year. Obviously, you got a lot. I'd love to one day play some disc golf with you and see, it's not as physical. It'd be really, really, really fun. But what you got going on with your wrestling academies, if there's any more opening up, and what you've got, planned for the rest of the year, and then your top 3 cryptocurrencies.
Okay. Yeah. So we have 5 wrestling academies open right now. I'm assuming that probably not anymore this year. I'm thinking we'll probably open one more next year. And we kind of have a map where we want to lay them out and kind of progressing along that line. Disc golf's great. I got 23 holes. I'm now I'm just got to upkeep it. I got to find the right groundskeeper for my course. Some of these high school kids, they like playing, and need to get them over here working a little more often. So just that stuff. And just like I said, I enjoy where my life's at right now. I get to do all the things that I enjoy, so it's great. And top 3 crypto. So Bitcoin's number 1. And that's, actually, I think a lot of people are going to get busted. I don't know if busted is the right word. They're going to realize that Dogecoin's bullshit and safe and when all these other shenanigans, just like I bought into some of the ICOs in 2017, and then, they went up and then they went to zero. And it actually made me think more of Bitcoin and what Bitcoin is. So I think that, these safe and the other shenanigans that bring people in are going to be good, because once people kind of get in, they're going to stay in, and then they'll read more about Bitcoin. They'll realize that is probably the final answer. So that's my number 1. I don't really have a clear 2 and 3. I have a lot of Ethereum. I have a lot of Litecoin. I have a bunch of Cardano. So I kind of have it spread. I'm very interested. I do not have a lot of it, but I'm very interested in what Uniswap's doing. And I think something in that, so that, the DeFi space, I think something there is going to be really, really successful, or possibly multiple projects. But usually once one gets the lead, they kind of keep the lead there. And then I'm actually, I don't own a lot of it, but I'm interested in Link. I have a little bit. I think something with the Oracle space, I think that's going to be really interesting also. And that's probably going to be the DeFi space and the Oracle space will probably be things that are around for a very long time moving forward.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Just to touch, you said something about the, once they get the lead. Do you follow Lynn Alden at all, or?
Do I follow what?
Lynn Alden?
No. She's great. You follow her on Twitter. I had her on just, with my team like a month ago, and she talks about network effects and everything. How do you spell her last name? Lynalden. But Michael Saylor follows her. The Winklevosses follow her. And she talks about network effects and how it's very rare that when something reaches $100 billion market cap or anything, that anybody can catch them again. But she's, like, statistically the most, brilliant. I hate to categorize male, female, but female, like in her age too, because she's relatively young. She puts out some incredible information and is followed by. I think you'd be really interested. So check her out for sure.
I just Googled her. I searched her on Twitter, and I haven't really followed her at all. That's interesting, because usually anyone who's big in the space I've seen, but I'll check her out.
Well, to be fair, she managed, like, she's an advisor for hedge funds and things. So she talks about cryptocurrencies, but she's really diversified, and really what I like is she's macroeconomics, really. Like Raoul Paul, who I'm sure you know of, has her on his podcast. I think she's a part of Real Vision actually as well too. She does some stuff for them. So
nice, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Ben, man, I gotta say, man, I was really looking forward to this one. So I'm glad that you agreed to come on here. So I really appreciate that. And man, best of luck with everything you're doing. I hope maybe I'll see you at one of these Bitcoin conferences. And I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Thanks. Have a great day.
All right, brother. You too.